All right, everybody, and welcome back to Sports Spot. Well, it's been a long time away, but things happen, especially in the world that we live in right now. As you can tell, we are in currently a new set. That being said, it's just for a short time, possibly, but who knows? COVID-19 is actually still affecting sports in a big way. The NBA had a bubble for one playoffs as well as the rest of the season. That being said, the league is actually having some pretty good things. That being said, the MLB was struggling to contain their league. The Marlins actually had a big issue for a while where they had 11 players without, I think there was 11 or 9 players that tested positive. But that being said, it's just struggling right now for the MLB as they try to finish their season, but it's going to be rough. I mean, they brought it down from 162 games down to 80 or 60, and man, is it rough. They're really struggling with that, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. But the NFL is actually kind of moving forward. They have a lot of teams that have announced their plans. That being said, it'll be interesting. The Jaguars announcing that they will only have 25 fans able to attend their game, but 25% of their capacity for their home games. The Patriots announced that they're going to have no fans, and the Eagles have announced that they're having no fans in their stadium for the entire season due to the city denying it, and there will be no fan visiting until further notice. Next thing, the Giants and Jets announced in a joint statement, no fans until further notice in MetLife Stadium. As well as the Rams and Chargers also announcing no fans as well in their stadium until further notice. The Raiders announced that they will have no fans at all in their new stadium in Las Vegas. The Packers are announcing no fans for the first 2 home games, and then they will reevaluate their system. The Washington football team, which we'll get into a little bit more later why I called them that, announced no fans for the 2020 home games. Texans announced that no fans at the home opener, and they'll reevaluate for their next home game. The Chiefs announced they will allow up to 22% capacity for the 2020 season. The Bears are announcing that no fans at the start of the 2020 season. Titans announced no fans for the home opener, and they will reevaluate for the next home game. The Seahawks announced no fans for at least the first 3 home games this season. The Lions have announced no fans for the first 2 home games. The Dolphins will allow a max capacity of 13,000 fans for their first home game. The Ravens announced no fans for the first portion of the season. The Vikings announced no fans for the first 2 games. 49ers announced no fans for the home opener. Bills announced no fans for the first 2 games. The Bengals are announcing that they have no fans of the home opener. The Steelers announced no fans for the first 2 home games. Cardinals announced for the first 2 home games. And finally, the last one we've heard from are the Panthers, and they announced no fans for the home opener. And for any other things, the NFL has put some things in place. If fans are allowed, they will be required to wear a mask. And the NFL could, if there are no fans, do what the NBA did. What the NBA did was they announced that if you could get into a meeting, I think from what I heard from Pat McAfee, it was through Microsoft Teams. And it kind of worked for the NBA, but it really shows that a lot of things could happen. The NFL has announced that they could do that. That being said, a lot of things are different. As well as some other things. Getting back into the next few topics here. Patriots were fined $1.1 million and lost a 2021 third-round draft pick for what they did with the Bengals. Now, is that enough? That's the big question. That being said, it was big. They were caught. They were caught red-handed, and it really shows that they didn't really mean to. But again, these things happen, and people didn't realize it. And is it enough? Who knows? But again, it comes down to what happens after this year. They've done a lot this offseason, but a lot of stuff's happened. But it'll be interesting. They did sign Cam Newton, and he was announced the starter earlier today. That being said, does that make them a contender? Who knows? Because no one really knows what the plan is for them. He signed on July 8th, and we'll say this, he must have impressed Bill Belichick big time. But that being said, he hasn't really played in a year. And that's the thing for me, what they're going to do, because you don't know. And it was a 1-year deal. I don't know if this makes the Patriots a contender after what they've done recently. That being said, we'll see what happens. The NFL and the NFLPA announced an opt-out policy and agreed upon to it on July 24th. But they did put a timeline on it where they could opt out and everything, and then they had a timeline to end it. This gave the players the opportunity to skip the 2020 contracts or 2020 season and have their contracts moved to 2021. And players who have opted out for the season will receive a salary advance in the form of a stipend. Players who are qualified as high risk for COVID-19 will receive $350,000 in advance, while the others will receive $150,000, and their contract will count. Now, for the people who are qualified as high risk, their contract actually counts. They lose a year, essentially. Unlike the guys who may have just signed maybe a 1-year deal, they are being allowed, they're not going to be out of their contract. They're not going to be able to do what they want to do. That being said, what happens will be interesting. But a total of 67 players have opted out, but some of the big names here are Ravens offensive tackle Andre Smith, Packers wide receiver Devin Funchess, Chiefs running back Damon Williams, Dolphins wide receiver Allen Hurns, a bunch of Patriots players, running back Brandon Bolden, safety Patrick Chung, linebacker Dante Hightower, wide receiver Marquise Lee, Giants offensive tackle Nate Soldier opts out, Eagles wide receiver Marquise Goodwin, who just signed a contract with the Eagles. 49ers wide receiver Travis Benjamin. I mean, and there's a lot more to that list, but that being said, it's not the final. That's the final list of the big names. Now, to get into the next topic here, the Washington Redskins, or now the Washington football team, they had a name change, and it was a big name change. Now, this is a temporary name change until they get everything figured out about the new name and licensing and everything, all the fun stuff. But that being said, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. A lot of these guys are, it was rough. This team, they lost their trademark for the Redskins a while back, and technically you could make money off the Redskins name and brand and sell it for your own, but it wasn't terrible. And then, yeah, there's a lot going on there. We'll get more into the Washington football team here in a little bit, but we're going to move on here. During the offseason, the teams in the NFL announced that they were strongly interested in the 4th and 15 from the 25-yard line to be able to do an onside kick. That being said, it got tabled. I'm going to read you to what they were really doing. They were offering a kickoff alternative in regulation only, can be used twice in regulation, and whether leading or trailing. And it cannot be used in the overtime period. Original line of scrimmage for the 4th and 15 kickoff alternative, scrimmage down, is a 25. If either A, kickoff or offensive team elects the kickoff alternative, or B, kickoff return or defense team commits a foul during the score or try that would normally bridge to the kickoff, it would be enforced from the A25. For example, if A commits a foul for taunting after the score, B could elect to enforce a 15-yard penalty from A25 spot, and the spot of the kickoff alternative scrimmage down would be the A13.5. If B commits a foul, unnecessary roughness on the TD, A could elect to enforce a 15-yard penalty from the A25, and the spot of the kickoff alternate scrimmage down would be the A team's 40. When the A team elects the kickoff alternative, the play clock is set to 25, but the down itself is untimed. All normal gameplay rules, including penalty enforcements, apply on the kickoff alternative scrimmage down. If the offense converts it is a first down, no matter where the dead ball is. The game clock begins on the snap. Once the team elects the kickoff alternative, it incurs a penalty on kickoff alternative scrimmage down. It may not change and elect to kick off. For example, A converts the 4th and 15, but it is called offensive pass interference. 10-yard penalty is assessed from the previous spot, and the down and distance is 4th and 25 from the A15. It cannot change and elect to kick off. If the A team elects to kick off the alternative and is charged with a team timeout before the referee signals for play, it can change the election and kick off. Now, it's interesting because that would be big. It would change the momentum swings of games. But the thing is, it makes sense, but it also doesn't. Because you look at the things that the XFL did last year, or during the spring of 2020, before everything got shut down, they completely messed up. That being said, it'll be interesting to see what happens with them. But everything is weird. And a lot will happen in the future. That being said, a lot of things will happen, and who knows. Moving forward here, Patrick Mahomes signs the largest contract ever in the history of the NFL. He signs a 10-year deal worth over $450 million with $141.428 million guaranteed, and he is now a part owner of the Kansas City Royals. He deserves it. Third year in his career, second year as a long-term starter, and he wins a Super Bowl. Yeah, think about that. That being said, I want to see what happens. A lot of players on that team are taking pay cuts. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with this. That being said, these guys are taking pay cuts to play with Patrick Mahomes, a defending MVP. And a lot of them are wanting to run it back. That being said, will it happen? Who knows? Now, here's a person who I didn't expect to get signed again. Joe Flacco. Now, here's my thing. Joe Flacco was a good quarterback. I wouldn't say great, but he was good. And to me, he looked defeated last year. He had surgery on his neck over the offseason. And I don't know how he looks right now. But to me, this could cause a lot of problems. He looked like he didn't love the game anymore. He looked devastated. And I don't know, man. Like he didn't look great at all in any of his plays. Or any of his starts or any of his time playing last season. And he signs with the Jets with a 1-year deal with a max of $4.5 million. What that means is he may not even get the $4.5 million. But he's a safety blanket and a security blanket for the Jets if Darnold goes down again. Now, it'll be interesting. The Seahawks are making headlines recently. Russell Wilson was pushing the Seahawks to sign Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown just got a 4-game suspension, or 4 or 8 game suspension. Can't remember off the top of my head, but he got a 4 or 8 game suspension and is actually not getting signed right now. But Russell Wilson did get a new target recently. Josh Gordon signed with the Seahawks earlier, but he's still awaiting reinstatement. Now, I've been saying this. The NFL needs to stop testing for marijuana. Now, that being said, the MLB did. The MLB stopped testing for it. I feel like the NBA will be next, and the last big name besides the Major League Soccer and the NHL, between the three, MLB, NBA, and the NFL, I feel like the NFL will be the last to stop testing it. But it'll be interesting to see what happens because, again, they will comprise of what happens with them. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. Moving forward here, Carlos Hyde, he signs with the Seahawks on a 1-year, $4 million deal. They're bolstering up that running game. They lost a lot last year. They had lost a lot due to injuries. And again, it'll be interesting to see what they do. And again, a lot of these guys are good players. Moving forward here, Jaguars offensive coordinator Jay Gruden believes Gardner Minshew could thrive in the NFL long term. That is if they don't sign or draft a quarterback named Justin Fields. Being said, I have faith in him. I've seen a lot out of him that I agree that, hey, he's going to be a good player. And again, it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. Giants quarterback Daniel Jones is reportedly working on ball security. Now, he was in the top 10 in passes and pressures, but the issue with him was he could not hold on to the ball if he was hit. And he was fumbling a lot. It wasn't interceptions, it was fumbles. That's going to kill a team's momentum. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Moving forward here, 49ers can extend Kyle Shanahan for 6 more years. And for right reason, he brought a team that went 2-14 the year prior to last year and brought them to the Super Bowl. Yeah, granted, he actually got his star quarterback, but that still doesn't mean he, was worthless. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Now moving forward here, Eagles guard Brandon Brooks tore his Achilles, is out for the entire season. What that means for Carson Wentz means that he may not be able to actually be healthy. He's currently having his own issues, but we'll see what happens. Now moving forward here, in the 2021 Pro Bowl will be played in Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. Now that's big news. This will be the first Pro Bowl in Vegas in a long time, and if not ever. And I think this is what the Raiders owners wanted for a while. And again, Vegas wouldn't be a bad idea. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Now, again, what will the Pro Bowl look like at that point? I don't know. Because a lot of players recently were actually opting out of it. And it doesn't look good on the NFL that their star players are opting out. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Pro Bowl at that time. Now, getting into some big news, everyone remembers the issue that the right tackle named Trent Williams, he was having issues with the Redskins, now Washington Football Team organization. And he was franchise tagged. But in this new deal that he signed with the 49ers, a 1-year deal, I think, maybe a little bit longer. Excuse me. He cannot be franchise tagged after this year. That's big. Because if that means that the 49ers only get him for a year to protect Jimmy Garoppolo, that means they need to win the Super Bowl this year. Otherwise, they're probably not going to see one for a little longer because it's hard to find a good left tackle in the league these days. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. The NFL announced, I guess, that officials will be required to wear masks and gloves for the entirety of the 2020 season, or until told otherwise. Now, that's big because of what's going on with COVID, and it'll be interesting to see what they do. Because, again, they are in a mood that it's big, and a lot of these guys are going to have to deal with this. Moving forward here, the Chiefs resign Chris Jones to a 4-year extension worth $85.5 million $85 million with a $60 million guaranteed. Now, that being said, it'll be interesting to see what happens because Chris Jones did take a pay cut. He's saying, okay, I'm fine with this as long as we, run it back to the Super Bowl. And I can see it working. If these guys are doing what players did with Brady for the longest time, playing with the guy that would be the greatest at the time. Another big name defensive player who's getting an extension is Myles Garrett. He is getting a 5-year extension worth $125 million and $100 million in guarantees and half in full. He's getting half of it now. Half of that guarantee in full right now. And that's interesting. Moving forward here, Titans running back Derrick Henry will stay long term with the Titans for 4 year with a 4-year $50 million deal that includes $20.5 million guaranteed. Now, that being said, how is this going to manage for him? I don't know. Derrick Henry was a monster last year, especially in the playoffs. If you guys remember that, he was setting playoff records with running the ball and doing everything he could at the time. Yeah, it was interesting. Moving forward here, 15 former employees have alleged sexual harassment during their time of work for the Washington Football Team. And these are the names that they were calling out here. Former radio announcer Larry Michael, former director of pro personnel Alex Santos, former pro personnel assistant Richard Mann. None of them informed that Dan Snyder or former president Bruce Allen were the issue here. Coming from a statement from the owner, Dan Snyder, the behavior described in yesterday, and I quote, "This behavior described in yesterday's Washington Post article has no place in our franchise. This story has strengthened my commitment to setting a new culture and standard for our team. A process began with the hiring of Coach Rivera earlier this year. Beth Wilkinson and her firm are empowered to do a full, unbiased investigation and make any and all requisite recommendations upon completion of her work. We will institute new policies and procedures and strengthen our human resources infrastructure. Not only avoid these issues in the future, but most importantly, create a team culture that is respectful and inclusive of all." Now, that's big. That being said, it's still an issue, and a big issue that needs to be discussed. And recently, the NFL actually took over the investigation. Dan Snyder originally took over, and then just recently, the NFL took over the investigation. And it'll be interesting to see what happens after this. What would it mean to the Redskins after this year? Moving forward here, we're going to keep moving here. I'm going to start saying some of the NFL travel rules and some of the things that they're doing this season. Some more of them. The NFL travel rules are saying no use of public or private transportation in other cities. No leaving hotel to go to a restaurant open to the public. If no one's there, they can go, but they can't be open to the public. No room visits by anyone outside the traveling party. No use of shared hotel facilities such as the pool, gym, etc. Masks are required when traveling. Buses 50% full. And at least one seat between each person on a plane. That's big. They're trying to crack down. They're also announcing daily COVID testing. And it's important for them to do that. I agree. And it'll be big to see what they do with this. That being said, things will probably change by the end of the year, but who knows? They've also announced that there will be no preseason games and there's no Pro Bowl. I mean, I bet there will still be voting and you'll still get the Pro Bowl award. But again, it doesn't really mean much. Another big news here. Alex Smith. Now, this is big. He actually was medically cleared to resume football activities and has been practicing. I hope, and I hope that he is able to do it, that he's able to play. He's not announced a starter for week 1, Dwayne Haskins was, but it'll probably still be an open quarterback battle between him and Haskins. But that's per head coach Ron Rivera. Again, I really hope for Alex Smith that he can recover and be able to play predominantly again and be able to do what he wants again. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, big trade happening over the offseason. Jamal Adams, he had requested a trade off the Jets. Yeah, he went to somewhere good. Real good. The Seahawks traded to get him. The Jets get safety Bradley McDougal, who's also a really good safety. 2021 first-round pick, a 2021 third-round pick, and a 2022 first-round pick. Well, the Seahawks get Adams and a 2022 fourth-round pick. Now, this is big. During the time before the trade happened, he actually called out Adam Gase for being a terrible leader. Now, I don't know the truth to this, but again, it's interesting to see because you see this, and he's requesting a trade, but Le'Veon Bell says no. It's going to be conflicting reports throughout the entire season. It'll be interesting to see. Moving forward here, the NFL created a temporary injured reserve spot for players who contract COVID. They can come back whenever they're done, but it allows the team to be able to pick up someone else at the time, and it's big, and it'll be interesting to see. Joey Bosa of the Chargers signed a 5-year, $135 million contract with 102 guaranteed. He got paid, and he deserves it. He's a good player. You may not hear his name because of J.J. Watt, Aaron Donald, T.J. Watt, some of these other big-name guys. He deserves it because he is still a force in this league, but he's not really being talked about. Just like Shaquille Barrett. Shaquille Barrett is a monster. He led the league in the sacks stat last year, and he's not being talked about. He's not even being mentioned as being one of the greater players this year. That I have an issue with that because he is a real good player, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with that, and especially with Joey Bosa. LaShawn McCoy signed a 1-year deal with the Bucks. They just got a lot faster with that. I mean, I don't know how well he's going to produce, but again, it'll be interesting to see what they do. And we got a little bit more clarity on the big on Ben Roethlisberger. Sorry, in his injury last year, he tore 3 of the 5 flexor tendons in his right elbow. And he believes that no quarterback has come back from this injury. That being said, who knows if he will? Again, it'll be interesting to see what they do with this. Roethlisberger's kind of fallen off in the past few years. I don't think he'll be good, but again, it's hard to tell with Roethlisberger, especially because of his size, but I think it's coming to the end for him. Cowboys signed former Vikings defensive end, not tight end, my bad, Everson Griffin to a 1-year, $6 million deal. That defense just got a lot scarier. But they did have something happen, which I'll get into here in a little bit, as to why they probably signed him. Tight end George Kittle agreed to a deal to an extension with the 49ers, which is a 5-year deal worth $75 million with $40 million guaranteed. And for injury, and $30 million at sighting. That's big. That being said, it'll be interesting to see what he does. He is now the highest paid tight end. Another tight end that just got paid is Travis Kelce. He got a 4-year deal worth $57.25 million with a $28 million guaranteed. He is the second highest now. Packers, wow. The Packers made an extension with nose tackle Kenny Clark. Now this is big because the Packers never really re-signed their talent. They finally do, and he deserves it. He's a good player. He gets a 4-year deal worth $70 million with a $25 million signing bonus. Now, this is why I think the Cowboys kind of signed Everson Griffin. Gerald McCoy was diagnosed with a torn quad, and due to a clause in his contract, he is cut from the Cowboys with no penalty to the Cowboys. McCoy will keep his $3 million bonus, but the Cowboys do not owe him any of that money from his contract that he signed over the offseason. Some sad news coming out of not the Redskins, but the Washington football team this year. Head coach Ron Rivera has been diagnosed with lymph node cancer. He is still going to be coaching this season. He's just going to be, obviously, not looking himself. Now, another good safety that is out of the place he was is free safety Earl Thomas. He was cut from the Ravens after a fight and personal conduct. With the release as a conduct detrimental to the team, the Ravens void the remaining $10 million in guarantees he is owed. He could actually fight this back, but I don't think he will. He probably believes he is in the wrong, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. But he got into a fight, and boy, was it not pretty. Again, it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Matt Nagy said he will not publicly announce the starting quarterback for Week 1 against the Lions. For sure though, it'll be either Nick Foles or Mitchell Trubisky. Now, I think will happen. This is my thought. I think that he will. I'm gonna say this now. Trubisky's gonna get the start. And if he starts falling on his face and tripling over his feet, he is going to bench him. And it'll become Nick Foles' team. Now, under Nagy, Foles actually had a pretty good season. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, moving forward here, Derwin James is out for 6 to 8 months or even the entire season with a torn meniscus. Now, that's a big hit for the Chargers. The Chargers are actually looking like a really stud-looking secondary this year, and it hurts. It hurts a lot for them, but it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward. Moving forward here, the Jaguars release starting running back Leonard Fournette. And then earlier today on September 3rd of 2020, the Buccaneers signed him. What in the world is going on down in Tampa? Leonard Fournette, Tom Brady, Gronkowski. I don't think it's going to be a good team, though, because Brady's starting to have a decline. Gronk has been out of the league for a year. And they don't know what's going on with the running backs. That being said, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Now, moving forward here, Prince Amukamara was released by the Raiders. Not much to talk about there. He was probably not performing to where John Gruden wanted him to. Now, moving forward here, the Chiefs did another big signing here. They extended both head coach Andy Reid and general manager Brett Veach to 6-year extensions. That being said, they probably got paid pretty well. They deserve it. They won the Super Bowl. And I think they'll be fine. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do, but I think it'll be good. Moving forward here, the Saints were willing to trade away running back Alvin Kamara. That's big news because he's their feature back. That being said, does it mean it's happening? No. They were probably just listening to the offers because they were not able to agree to a contract, and he was not showing up to practice. That being said, probably worth it. If he wasn't coming to practice. But it'll be interesting to see what he does. Now, Yannick Ngakoue from the Jaguars. Well, not Jaguars anymore. The Vikings traded to get him. They only get Ngakoue. But the Jags, man. The Jags came out big champions here. They get a 2021 second-round pick, 2022 conditional fifth that could turn into a third. It becomes a fourth if Ngakoue makes a first-ballot Pro Bowl, and a third if the Vikings win the Super Bowl. Man, is that interesting. That being said, a lot of these guys are going to struggle. I mean struggle. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. Now, moving forward here, they restructure his contract, and he took a pay cut. He wanted off the Jags so bad that he took a pay cut to be on a different team. Man, does that feel weird. It'll be interesting to see what he does. They restructured it to a 1-year, $12 million contract. It'll be interesting to see what they do there. Moving forward here, I feel bad for Josh Rosen. He has not been on one team that has had faith in him. I feel real bad for him, and he doesn't deserve it. I feel like he's good. He just needs to develop. He hasn't had that team that trusts him. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Now, moving forward here, the Dolphins, like I said, they are listening to trade offers. They are listening to trade offers for him, and I don't agree with it. He needs to have that structure. Yeah, they just got Tua. Yes, they have Ryan Fitzpatrick. But if one of those two go down, you need that backup, and you need someone that knows the system. Rosen knows that system. I want to see him be on a team for at least 4 years. 4 years I want to see him on a team, and it'll be interesting. Now, another big news. The Patriots release Mohamed Sanu. Man, they just traded for him, man. Like, damn, he was actually a really good player. And, again, he was on the Falcons. He was with, name can't come to my head. He was with Julio Jones, there we go, and Matt Ryan, and Riley. It'll be interesting to see, because I think he's good still. It'll be interesting to see what teams go after him. Now, if you are into video games, listen to this. If you're into Madden at all, there have been cries for EA to be dropped. They've been putting out a subpar game, and as a Metascore, they got 0.4 out of 100 on this latest Madden. That's an issue. That is a big issue and needs to be discussed. There's been hashtags going around saying hashtag NFL drop EA, as well as hashtag end Madden Monopoly. And me being a Madden fan, I completely agree. Or not Madden, but an NFL gaming fan. I completely agree. The last few years, EA has put out a subpar product. Now, it's time for the gamers to speak up. It's time for us to speak up. And it's time. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for coming to SportsSpot. Thanks for listening if you're on Spotify. And thanks for watching if you're on YouTube. Thanks for coming. It's been good, guys. I'll catch you next time. Thank you.